First off, in 2007, my actor of the year has to be Josh Brolin. He was in 4 of my favorite movies. In American Gangster, he's a dirty cop. In the Valley of Eli, he's a jaded chief of police. In Grindhouse, he's a doctor who becomes a zombie. And the best role of his life so far, in No Country for Old Men, he's a handyman who steals money from drug runners and then has to go running himself. I think in that movie, his scene with the pit bull in the Rio Grande alone is worth the price of admission. So okay, here goes. And as always, we start with the honorable mentions. Juno. No one, I mean no one in high school speaks like Juno does in this movie. And the idea that a teenage girl experiencing something as stressful as an unwanted pregnancy would be this glib about it is nonsense. I realize it's a comedy, but it's supposed to be based on truth. If you can't believe the truth, it makes the comedy less effective. Grindhouse presents Planet Terror and Death Proof, a double feature that resembles the crappy cinema of the 70s. Robert Rodriguez got it perfectly, with missing reels, a scratch print, and cheesy effects. But Quentin Tarantino made a modern-looking film with nothing cheesy about it. In fact, Quentin's Death Proof is way overwritten, with too many asides about things only he cares about. I love the disgusting sneak previews in the center of the double feature. My favorite, Thanksgiving. In one word, sick. Waitress. 3 comedies in 1 year about unplanned pregnancies: Juno, Knocked Up, and Waitress. And out of the 3, this has the most likable characters. But call me old-fashioned. I just wish the main character, played by Kerry Russell, didn't have an affair with her married doctor. If they were both miserable in their marriages, I wouldn't give it a second thought. But coming on to a happily married man cheapened the film for me a little bit. But Andy Griffith is fantastic as the town's grouchy old rich man. Sunshine. This mix of Alien and 2001 was a great surprise this summer. An international crew is sent on a possible suicide mission to save the Earth by reigniting the dying sun. Made by the people who brought you Slumdog Millionaire and 28 Days Later, they put the same kind of edge into this tale and draw a great performance out of Cillian Murphy. Nanking. The Rape of Nanking, as its book is appropriately called, was during World War II when a debased Japanese army conquered the shipping town of Nanking, China, and all the peasants who were too poor to escape. While the men were tortured and killed, it was the women and girls who suffered repeated attacks from their savage captors. Many of the victims are still alive to tell their tales, and do so in the film. But what really disgusted me were the interviews with the 80-year-old Japanese soldiers, who recall their atrocities with laughter and smiles. 28 Weeks Later. It's a sequel to 28 Days Later, and has carnage that is both crazy and heavy. But nothing matches the jaw-dropping scene from the beginning of the movie. It's such a colossal nightmare. I was sure it could only be a dream sequence, because no one would truly act that way. But it wasn't, and it sets a stage for what kind of movie you're about to witness. American Gangster. Denzel Washington can play with Frank Lucas in his sleep, and at times almost does. But he rouses himself up for some wicked scenes. Russell Crowe does his best Popeye Doyle in the part of Richie Roberts, a cop who is dead honest on the job but cheats on his wife incessantly. He is the much more interesting character in this film. The Bourne Ultimatum. Definitely the most exciting of the 3 films, with the stylized action from the first mixed with the documentary style of the second, for an eye-popping, heart-stopping thrill ride. But unlike the first 2, there are some bullshit moments in this movie that defy the law of physics. But overall, a great time. Eastern Promises. Viggo Mortensen puts on a great performance as a Russian gangster working in London, who wrestles with his conscience when a mysterious baby connects the gang with a strong-willed woman on the outside. Writer-director David Cronenberg stages one of the most hard-to-watch fight scenes with a naked knife fight in a sauna. The Diving Bell and the Butterfly. Usually not my type of movie, but the story of the editor of the French magazine Elle, overcome with a paralyzing stroke at the age of 41, is told with such great humanity and an unexpected sense of humor that this film is definitely a winner in my book. Before the Devil Knows You're Dead. Albert Finney is great as the father of 2 loser sons, played by Ethan Hawke and Philip Seymour Hoffman. Hawke is his usual slimy self as the weaker, sniveling brother. But Hoffman is miscast as the tougher brother, who uses heist money to pay off some big white-collar crimes. The final scene was way too overdramatic for a movie that tries to keep it real. 300. Is it a great movie? No. But it has to be acknowledged for being one of the most creative achievements in 2007. Visually mesmerizing and outrageously violent. Okay, here's the top 10. Persepolis, an animated film about a young girl's struggle in Iran. It's a true life story of the young woman and shows how things were not perfect but much better when the Shah was in charge and how terrible they became under the Ayatollah. Under the Shah there were 3,000 political prisoners, but under the Ayatollah there were 300,000. Superbad, the funniest comedy of the year. This film was written by two guys while they were still in high school. Their idea? To make a movie that kids their age would want to see, and they did it. In the Valley of Elah, Tommy Lee Jones is a former MP out looking for his missing son home from Iraq. When a soldier arrives at his door with news, Tommy interrupts the soldier to apply a small piece of toilet paper to his shaving cut. It's a minor detail, but it informs the character in two ways. One, that he's retired, but a strict military man who will not let another soldier see him be unkempt. And two, that it gives him a chance to gain his composure before he hears the news that he expects. Number 7, Bridge to Terabithia. An 11-year-old boy and a girl who lives next door become best friends, and through their imaginations, build a wonderful kingdom in the woods near their house. But then something horrible happens in real life, and the movie switches gears rapidly. From that point, I started tearing up, and it wasn't for the sad thing that happened so much as for the crazy way the other characters handled it. Number 6, Reign Over Me. Adam Sandler does incredible work as the shattered widower who was once a top New York City dentist but is now just a crazy rich hobo. Don Cheadle plays his old roommate from college that has made it his life's work to bring this man back among the living. The first half has so many great laugh lines, but when the tone changes in the second half, I cried for the last 40 minutes of the movie. Number 5, Michael Clayton. George Clooney has that super cool Danny Ocean way of making everyone around him feel like things are going to be just alright. The fact that in order to make things alright, the lawyer has to commit some white-collar crimes is something that eats at Mickey's conscience. This movie has a good ending, although I'm not sure I completely bought it, but at least they tried. 4 months, 3 weeks, and 2 days is my number 4 film. A young woman in 1980s communist Romania goes through the most stressful day trying to help her friend have an abortion. Terminating a pregnancy was illegal there back then, and getting caught would mean prison for both women and the doctor. She is the way more responsible one, forced to run around their horrible town, making sure it all happens without any glitches. The last half is pure suspense thriller with a jumpy handheld camera, and I guarantee you your heart will be pounding. Number 3, Sicko. After seeing this film, I came out of that theater with a new consciousness. What the movie talks about is not the 50 million Americans who don't have health care insurance, but the 250 million who do and get screwed by their insurance companies. Michael Moore is definitely the Upton Sinclair of our generation. And for those who don't know, Sinclair is the early century writer who made sure you don't eat blended rats in your hot dogs. Number 2, No Country for Old Men. No Country would have easily been my number 1, but the Coen brothers screwed up the ending. The first 1 hour and 30 minutes is so good that I could barely breathe while watching it. Then the last 20 minutes just fall apart. But, they're so bad and aimless, you almost think the Coens messed it up on purpose. Number 1, Across the Universe. Do I have it here? Across the Universe. I can't find it right now. At times corny, but overall a beautiful movie. The most magical film of the year. Actors portray a story that is pieced together out of the lyrics of Beatles songs, and they sing these songs in radically new ways, all against a background that explodes with color and psychedelia, and makes the movie and the viewer come alive. And the ending gave me goosebumps, and that rarely happened this year. So that's my list. I hope you get to see some of these films from the Freditor.